Hi, everybody. This is Warren Herman, and so we're going to speak about tonight is some further thoughts on vocational discernment. One thought that we can begin with, and I'm going to go through a few of them, is this idea that when we are discerning our vocations, sometimes we can worry that we might be convincing ourselves of one thing or another in a way that is not grounded in God's will, but is simply grounded in our own preferences. What we have to remember is that wishful thinking can take either side, I think. So, for example, I might have wishful thinking that downplays the challenges of being a husband because I want to um, be a husband. I might also have wishful thinking that might make it seem like I should be a priest. We can have wishful thinking on either side that can pull us toward marriage or pull us toward priesthood or the religious life. And I think that we should understand that we can have mixed motives in our discernments, in the ways we weigh things in our minds. So just because we have a good feeling when we think about one thing or think about another, we might almost be using, our body like a barometer to test whether we feel one thing or another. And in these situations, we might be able to convince ourselves with our feelings or our thoughts that we should go one way or another, but it may just be, or at least partially be, wishful thinking. Maybe sometimes we should just admit what we want rather than try to confirm what we want with some type of extraordinary sign. So, this is another interesting idea. Maybe sometimes we are afraid to go out on a limb. We'd rather just have somebody tell us what to do rather than take the risk of being wrong. But maybe that risk is authentically human. So maybe we would prefer to have God tell us what to do. The only problem with that is that then we are constrained to do it, required to do it, trapped. So the danger is if you gain certainty, you're then trapped. You have to do it. You must do it. If you have uncertainty, you're trapped in not knowing what to do and you don't move. So the thing to remember is that there's something amiss, I think, in certainty, and something amiss, I think, in uncertainty. And so I want to suggest this other point, that maybe there's no need for compulsive certainty and no need for compulsive doubt. When St. Joan of Arc was questioned by, during her trial, they asked her, "Are you in a state of grace?" Meaning, are you in the friendship of God? And she said, "If I am not, may it please God to place me there in that state of grace in his friendships. And if I am, may he preserve me in it." Something along those lines, she said. So there is this lack of a compulsive attitude there. Somebody who has religious scrupulosity, for example, is deeply anxious about whether they are in a state of grace. They would not give the answer that St. Joan gives us. So, if we're in a state of scrupulosity or in a state of fear, we're going to be overly concerned about, maybe, am I in a state of grace? Or am I called to the religious life? Am I called to the priesthood? Probably there needs to be more of that attitude that St. Joan has, that kind of, I don't know, but I trust God. It's like, I don't know, but and it's also, so I think that that's very interesting. And when we're in a healthy state of mind about something, we don't have that kind of compulsive need to know. It's like if somebody trusts their wife, for example, they don't need to get all kinds of reassurance that she's not, cheating on them, or he doesn't need to get reassurance that she's not stealing from him. You don't think about it. You just don't think. It doesn't cross your mind. It's not part of the normal day. You don't say, oh, maybe my house is going to fall down. You just live your life. You're not worried, oh, houses are going to fall down. You don't go around like that. Maybe we need that same mindset around the things that matter most. I mean, the house falling down is pretty bad. Maybe, I don't know. I haven't checked the blueprints. It's like, but I just trust that it's going to stay up. You know. But the thing is, in the same way, our vocation is very important. But it may very well be that we don't think about it. We don't think about being one thing or being another thing. We don't say, oh, like, it's not like we go. And it's interesting. It may not even be like, oh, like, when you become a religious or become a priest, you suddenly are someone else. It's like, it's like it's not like, oh, you leave behind who you are when you become these things. A priest that I know, he says sometimes he'll forget, that he's a priest, and also he remembers that he can bless things. It's like, oh yeah, I can do this myself. I'm a priest. I watched a video humorously where a priest one time said, he took a nap, and after he was ordained, and the day after or something like that, he called up his friend. He said, I realized the priests can take naps. Like, because it was so strange to be a priest and be able to take a nap. It's just a humorous story, obviously. This is an interest. This may also be, I think this may also be a useful, analogy as well in this. If we want to think about, and I'm not stating anything, therapeutic about this, or certainly nothing judgmental about this, and like, this is bad people. I'm not saying anything like that with this. What I'm saying is very interesting. So if I was like, let's say I had gender dysphoria and I feel like I should be a woman. Let's say I feel like I should be transgender. The interesting thing is that would be a much more clear emphasis on being a woman for a certain reason than a woman would even have. Like, a woman doesn't, I would think that a woman does not think about being a woman, nor does a man think about being a man. A man is just a man, and a woman is just a woman. There's no thought that I should be this thing. And I think that, we should look at vocation in a similar way. Like, maybe when you're a priest or you're religious, you don't think about it like that. Like, you don't not like go around thinking, I'm a priest, I'm a priest, I'm a priest, any more than you think I'm a man, I'm a man, I'm a man. Or am I a man? Should I really be a man? Maybe I should be a nun. Like, you don't keep thinking about being a nun when you're a nun. You just are a nun. You don't worry about what you should. I think the thing is really to have less of an intense focus on what we are, to let go of the need to be that thing or not be that thing. Because, I spoke in another video about the thing of, it was very interesting, because sometimes we can have, and this is to analyze these things again, there's no judgment, I'm not giving therapeutic advice, I'm not saying anything. I'm saying, it's interesting. I was watching a video of a man talking about his inclinations toward transgenderism, and he was talking about, he was talking about that he wanted to be appreciated. I think he was saying something like this, like he wanted to be appreciated for who he was. He didn't want to have to be like always like doing stuff in a way, and in a way, it's like, even very famously Bruce Jenner, he became transgender, but you could think about the amount of achievement someone like that had to do as an Olympic athlete, and just to want to be viewed as valuable and what he looked like, to want to be a woman and be seen as valuable in who he was rather than what he could do. You could see that pressure to want to leave behind. I mean, I'm not saying this is his entire motivation. I'm just giving an analogy that we can apply to our vocational journey. So he might have a sense of like, okay, I need to become something different to get away from this pressure, and his thought of being a woman would be different than a woman's thought of being a woman, because at least in the way that we're analyzing this now, I mean, everybody is a different person, but I would think that there could be some analogy here, and at least we can use this as an analogy to a degree, um, and think about this idea that that there's a sense in which we don't want to have to have to be something different. What's the pressure that's driving us to want to be this thing, and to let go of that pressure? What is the stress that's making us want to be a priest, or this compulsion that's making us want to be married? What is this thing that drives us to need to do that? Are we, oh, I need to prove that I can be lovable, so I need to be married, or I need to make sure I'm safe, from family members who have big personalities, and be a priest? Like, what's the thing that's driving me compulsively? And we need to get some pressure off of that. We need to take the pressure off. Um, so that's something. It was interesting. There's even a form of OCD that I was watching a video about a man who was talking to his father, because the man who's doing the video was talking to his father about. I believe that the man had a type of OCD which is called HOCD, or the OCD that we constantly are checking whether you are homosexual, out of the fear that you might be homosexual. And so he's speaking to his father, and he says to his father, I believe, would you ever consider being with a man? And the father said, I don't know, maybe, but I've never seen a man I was attracted to. And so you could see that kind of attitude that the father had, which was very almost like not even like, well, I don't know, I guess it's possible, but I don't never was attracted to men, so it's not like, no, he's not um it's the kind of, he doesn't need to have this extensive level of certainty about, he doesn't say certainly not. I mean, and yes, maybe, it's not this, there's not a compulsive need for certainty about his orientation, very different in contrast to the man who was heterosexual but had the obsession that he might become homosexual and was terrified. The man didn't need to. The father didn't need to over have over certainty, so to speak. It's interesting. I mentioned Saint Joan of Arc. There's also a very interesting figure in the history of scrupulosity is John Bunyan, who's a Protestant writer. I don't know that much about him, but I understand that from some things I've read that he had periods where he would have all these scruples and all these doubts, and then he would have these periods of great certainty. And then they would go back into these doubts. He gained a certainty that he had this great relief and this ecstatic feeling, and then eventually that. And I think that that's the problem. The problem is really this ecstatic certainty, or this debilitating and confusing doubt, because both of these might very well be fantasy. They might both be fantasy. And it reminds me a lot of what Luther, most people don't know that Martin Luther suffered from pretty severe scrupulosity. And scrupulosity is like a form of OCD that attaches to religious things. And most people don't know that his suffering was not really due to his Catholic religion, but was due to his obsessions that related to that attached to his Catholic religion. But then he went and founded Protestantism, basically. But the thing that's interesting is you could see there's this kind of, he has this kind of constant uncertainty about his faith, and then he has this experience where he has a sudden experience of like a feeling of like illumination when he discovers this kind of, where he kind of, I would say, misinterprets scripture for this doctrine of faith alone, and it kind of opens, it's kind of this ecstatic certainty that he gets there, and he kind of goes from this uncertainty, he goes from this kind of compulsive lack of certainty, this very bold certainty about his salvation. It's like we see it go from one side to another, and so it's very it's a very interesting phenomenon. And I think that that's something that we should think about. It's like, are we swinging from polarity, pole to pole? Can we have just a softer view of the whole subject? Do we need to have this extensive certainty of our vocation? Because many people would say, as a Catholic, many people who are discerning their vocation would say, okay, I don't want to have the same mindset as Martin Luther, because that would lead us to Protestantism. But do we have the same mindset when it comes to our vocations, that we need to, that we're thinking, oh, I have so much uncertainty, or do I need to have certainty, like this kind of de fide certainty, that like it needs to become a doctrine of the faith that I am called to this state or not? That's not the amount of certainty we get to have. We might have enough certainty to take action on it. That's what they mean by a moral certainty. But you don't know. Maybe we just don't know. I remember a priest saying to me one time, he says, you really don't know if you're called to be a priest until the bishop puts his hands on your head and you're a priest. You don't know. Because you don't know, ultimately, the church hasn't selected you, yet until that happens. So that's the thing. And then maybe, there might be many things. So you might have some understanding of your personal charism. You might have some understanding of your spiritualities that you're attracted to. But maybe, maybe you think you have a certain mission in life. Maybe it's true. But maybe there's some other ways of putting that together. Maybe your understanding of that isn't perfect. Maybe, there's certain things I think I should do with my life, but there's other ways I could accomplish that. There's other ways that, it might mean other things about me. And, it's like, it doesn't necessarily mean the things I think it means. It doesn't mean I need to do this necessarily in the church. Maybe there's some other ways I can do the same things and have the same values in the church, Sorry, the events have just turned on. So the thing is, maybe, some of these things we feel God has called us to do in the world, maybe these purposes that we feel called to, maybe we're attached to them for a little bit of a, maybe there's a little bit of a too much attachment there. Maybe we need a little bit more freedom around pretty much everything. Maybe we don't need to know. Maybe we need to be a little bit more loose, in the, I remember playing a video game a long time ago where there were two paths that you could take. There was this thing called closed fist, and then the other one was open palm. And, these were kind of to express these kind of like yin and yang concepts in this game. And so, but I think that the thing is, a lot of times we're taking the closed fist path. We're really like holding a little too tight. It's almost like, there's this thing of like, there's, you're running after the butterfly with the net, but just open your hand and the butterfly will sit in your hand. I think that's the thing. I think that's how certainty happens. It's like we're going after the certainty too much with our vocations. You got to open the palm to do that. I'm just kind of throwing out some analogies now. Throwing out different analogies. So, and we may have a very clear, I'm called to do this. I'm called to spread these ideas. I'm called to found this group. I'm called to do this. I'm called to do that. Maybe we really don't know if that's the case. Maybe we have maybe there is something. Maybe there's something to those ideas. Maybe there's something, but maybe we're not certain exactly what we're supposed to do with them. I'm sorry, my nose is so itchy. Don't worry, I'm not making a mess. I'm just itching on my nose. It's just really itchy. So here's the thing. We really want to get to a place with this freedom. Maybe our experiences don't have clear meanings. Maybe even the past motives we uncover are not clear indications of what we should do. Because if you uncover a past motive, a mixed motive, then you don't have a mixed motive anymore. And again, I think as what we're saying here, the whole thing is that uncertainty and certainty are both problems. Clarity is what we're looking for. Maybe clarity is more like a settled comfort with uncertainty. Maybe clarity comes from a lack of a false perception of danger. Maybe clarity is not about what you are certain about, but it's what, or maybe it's not what you're like, oh, I have clarity. I'm thinking on this subject and I found clarity with it. It's like, no, maybe clarity is just not thinking about that subject too much. Maybe the things we're just thinking too much about our vocations, and we need to think about a whole other lot of other things in our faith. Maybe clarity is the end of obsessive thinking. Maybe clarity is the end of myopic focus on vocation in the spiritual life and expansion to other things in the spiritual life. Maybe we think about all the other stuff that life could be about. Maybe your feelings are just feelings. Maybe they don't need to be, oh, I feel like I shouldn't be a priest. Maybe it doesn't mean anything. Maybe the thing really is that, at the end of the day, you want to get to a point where, these are significant decisions that you have to make. You can have concern, but you don't have fear. You don't want to have this kind of thing like that. This is so important. It's such an emergency. It may have significance, but not this kind of accentuated importance. And maybe clarity is just a mindset that encompasses all things. It's not about one thing. Maybe it's like taking off the blinders that give you that myopic focus. And, it's like maybe it's a perspective that's in touch with reality rather than about these fearful imaginations. And I think that you'd say, I think this fear that we have, like we may read some quotes from St. Alphonsus, but even St. Alphonsus doesn't say you're 100% guaranteed to be damned if you pick the wrong vocation. He doesn't say that. He says it's going to be difficult to be saved. He says these many things like that, but he doesn't say you're going to be damned. And the thing is, a lot of times we're really living as if we're going to be damned if we make the wrong choice. That's really how we're living. That's why we have 100% fear. We need to maybe have concern. We need to give it serious thought, but then we don't need to have this accentuated perception of danger. I want to also say, this thing, and then I'll kind of end with this idea. I want to also say that, think about a horse in a race. They put blinders on them to make sure they go, the right way. That blinder is the problem, I think. I think a lot of times we either are looking at those blind spots and saying, hey, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Or we find that clarity and we're like, okay, I'm going this way, I'm going this way, I'm going this way. But our visual field is not where it should be. Maybe we just need to take those blinders off and not have that uncertainty that we usually live in. It's keeping us kind of confused, keeping us in a rut. Or that, because it's really the focus. It's a change of focus. Sometimes, we can be focused on the fact that we have the blinder on, and sometimes we're just focus on that direction. We think we certain that we're called that way. But maybe that whole thing is wrong. Maybe the thing is, it's not a race. It's not this exceptional pressure. We have to stop running this race. We got to take off the blinders because it's not a race. It's not a race. It's not this extensive pressure. That's not what vocational discernment is. It's not a pressure thing. It's a love thing, probably. So that's probably why we need to get out of that mindset of fear. We need to move from a discernment mindset of fear to a vocation mindset of love. Think about it. You wouldn't discern you wouldn't say, you wouldn't want fear of picking the right person, fear of everything that could go wrong to govern your discernment of a marriage with a person. Why should fear of God smiting you if you pick the wrong thing? Why should that govern, your relationship, your discernment of religious life? Why should you? That wouldn't be a good attitude for one. Why would it be a good attitude for the other? If it wouldn't be a good attitude among earthly things, why would it be a good attitude for heavenly things? And again, in the same vein, I just want us to close with this idea. And this is brought up in the book Religious Vocation on a Necessary Mystery. Why would, vocation, it's like, why would it be all about these weird signs and all kind of like, of course it's good, if God gives you some type of amazing signal grace, that's good. But the thing is, why wouldn't our mind function normally in the discernment of vocation? why would it require all these weird ways of thinking, all these secretive things? Why, like, trying to let me you wouldn't pray constantly for God to talk to you about, like, what you should eat for breakfast. So it wouldn't make sense to talk to him like that, to expect that there would be like a visible voice. Um, it wouldn't, if you were kind of looking for signs of where you should go to college, that might not be the best way to do it. So why when we see the pitfalls of some of these methods for lesser choices, do we not see the pitfalls with these greater choices? And I'm not saying that there might not be any validity to these things. I'm just saying, let's think about this. So those are a bunch of different thoughts about vocation and vocational discernment that I hope can be a bit, that can be helpful. And I think that the thing really is, again, because, if we're looking for these signs, if we're looking at these things, we're trying to look for certainty. We're trying to look for certainty. And we're uncertain because we're looking for certainty. And the thing that we're really after is clarity. And so I think that that's the main thing, is we want the freedom of clarity, which is not an obsessive focus on anything. And that is what we're really looking for. We're not looking for certainty about our vocation. We're looking for a clear mindset. We're looking for a mindset that has everything in perspective. And then we don't need to know the answer to a vocation. We want to seek first the kingdom of heaven, and everything else will be added to us. Seek first clarity, and then seek first a clear mind, and then you'll get clarity about particular matters. Have a generally clear and secure attitude, a clear mind. It's not too fearful. And, then other matters in your life, including your vocation, I think will come into focus. So that's just some thoughts that I'm having about vocation while I'm sitting here tonight. I hope they are helpful to you on your journey.